Okay, so the plates that we've been working on are these plates here. We've got our adjustment on the bottom, and we've got our router base attached to it. And what this allows us to do is to make the router into a quick change tool. So this is my holder here, and basically what happens is when you want to install the router, you just drop that on in there, and when you want to pull it out, you pull it out, and then you slip the next one in for whatever router that you're using, and you have your height preset. It has a couple of clamps on each side that you tighten down, and that enables you to hold this in place so that you can do the work that you need to do on the lathe. So with the routers. So that's what we built. Now it's what we have to do is actually put it to work and make it happen. So I'll be setting up the lathe over there as soon as I finish with a couple of other little small deals that we have to get done today as well. So I'll show you some of that, and I'll show you our making of our stops. Okay, we're prepping this piece of aluminum for a jig that we're going to make to hold a little teeny part, to do a special little job on a little part. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, so we faced this part off. Now what we're going to do is drill a hole in it, and that'll be a minute or two. I have to figure out what we're going to do as far as a hole. So I figure out the size that we have to drill through it, and then we'll go on to our next part. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to drill through here all the way through this, and then we're going to tap it out to 1/4-28. So let's go ahead and we'll drill this puppy. I think I've got everything in order. Okay, now what I'll need to do is tap that out. So now what we're going to do is we're going to tap this. We've got pressure onto it with the with our so this is what we're making. A set screw. Hey Dixon, we're making a set screw that's just like this for one that's just long like that. So what we'll do is we'll set one set screw in here already to the depth that this needs to be. Then we'll screw this one into that to that depth, and then I'll know that I'll need to cut off the rest of it to this diameter. So let's see, hopefully you can see that. So that's what we'll be doing next. So this one will act as a depth gauge for me. You can see we got about a 1/16 left. So I'll take it in just a little bit further. Okay, I've got the part in there I need. Clean the threads of this one. I'll insert this. Okay, so that part sticking out is going to need to be trimmed down to a smaller diameter because that pin has to insert through a lock set. So let me determine what that diameter is. Okay. So I've set my mic to the proper diameter, so all I have to do is test it to see if it's right, and we'll be able to make that work. So now let me put on a carbide tip because that's hardened steel. Okay, I'm checking now to make sure that I can get up there to my part without getting hit by anything else. Looks like we're good. So we'll go ahead and we'll come out here and we'll see what we can take off here. Okay, let's give it a shot. Oh, we're right there. Okay, so we'll pull that puppy out and we'll call that good. So this is what I made right here. It has a kind of an extended end on it, a set screw. And so what this does is this goes into a lever handle. It goes through the outside hub of the handle, and it engages with a part that now allows that lever to pull the latch back. So we needed to make that little part. One was missing. It would take about 2 weeks for it to get here from the factory. So we made it. So now I've got a little a die, and I'm going to run this through the die to make sure that those threads are good, and we'll be able to send it out. So all that prep of this and drilling, putting a set screw in, tapping, drilling a set screw into it, and all that stuff was just so that we could make a special screw for a lock set. So customer couldn't wait and needed to have it. Couldn't wait for it to come in, so we got the tools. I got some know-how, and so we make it happen.
And now for something completely different.
So I'm over here at the old Oliver lathe, and we're getting ready to set this up so we can finally cut those rubber stops for our prison project. And after we do that, then we have to make the bases for those stops. So we're going to go ahead and get set up. Right now I've set up for the standard metal cutting tooling that we have on it. What we want to do is set it up for the router. So the tailstock will have to move back. We'll have to mount the jig that I made for routers onto the cross feed, and then set all the drill routers up with the proper bits and that sort of thing, and then we'll be able to start going. Okay, this is my setup. This is the rack that the routers go into. I'm going to go ahead and, well, you'll see as I slip the routers into it how that sets up. This is the stock that I'm cutting right here, and you'll see how each bit does its job. But to start out with, I have to first measure the cuts on this. So we have a certain depth that we have to go. We have to make a cut so far from the edge, and then we chamfer all that, and then we cut the part off. So we'll go ahead and we'll do that. And before I do that, I want to check something out. I want to make sure I don't hit my tool. Yeah, that'll work. Okay, I'm going to use this old Helios to mark the total thickness that I want to cut this, and then we'll use our other scribe to cut the distance from the side to the center of the cut that I need to make. So we'll go ahead and we'll make those two marks. So the first thing that we'll do is we'll cut our center out. So we'll put that router in the first, then we'll put our router in that does the chamfer. Now, one thing that I wanted to tell you that I forgot to mention in my last video, I went down to get my routers. Well, this happened just yesterday, so that was before I finished the last video. But I went down to get the routers and they didn't have the DeWalt's there, so I would have had to order them. So I got a couple of Porter cables. So that meant that I had to re-drill these face plates for the holes for the Porter cable that I got. But that was just a small thing to do. So now we're all set up. We're going to go ahead and we're going to bring this up to that mark. I'll set up a indicator to tell me how deep I need to cut. I cut it 3/100 of an inch. So we'll get that done and then we'll proceed. Okay, so I've got the indicator set up here. So I'll take this in 3/100 of an inch, and as I route it. So we'll go ahead and turn on the router. I will have to order some more material because it's not enough to complete my task. That's our last part. That I can do tonight because it's all the material I have. Well, that's was pretty much a take there. We've got more parts to make, obviously. It's not nearly enough to get by, so I'll have to buy some more material to get that from McMaster Car. Probably have it, if I order it here in the next 10 or 15 minutes, I'll have it on Monday by noon. This is Friday night. And so they respond pretty quickly. They have it in stock. And I'll try to remember what it is so I can tell you what that material was. I purchased that, shoot, almost a year ago, so my memory ain't that good. But there was a certain specification I had to follow, and so we purchased that from McMaster Car according to the specs. And now we're going to have to take that both screws to the steel and it epoxies to the steel back plate. The next thing that we really have to do is we have to start making all the steel brackets, and that'll take some TIG welding and what have you. So we'll be doing that next. I'll be setting up for that, and that's probably what you'll see. We won't show you the finish of milling these little rubber parts out, but I will tell you what the material is once we get it in. No sense seeing the redundancy of the same thing over and over and over again. You saw a lot of that today, and you got to see how the routers work, how you can move one in and out real quickly. Well, not real quick, but quicker than it'd take to change bits and all that sort of thing. So it worked out pretty well, and so we're gonna go ahead and call it a night tonight, and the next setup you'll see is on the metal brackets. I wanted to show you the bracket that I made up for the quick change. See, these are your two thumb screws. You got 4 of them. I only use the top 2, and this is part of the crossfeed on the lathe. And so I drilled a hole through this plate steel that's on the bottom here, and it drops over it, and then these big Allen screws hold it tight against the plate. And the reason that the reason you have that other long part and the hole in the center, excuse me, is typically is going to be mounted this way at 90 degrees to the work that's in the lathe. So it it'll run along this way, and and we have a video on that. I think maybe Zach can look that up. But this nut here. I need to get over that nut, so I have that hole here that sits over the top of that nut, and then it feeds back and forth this way. So I can turn it just about any degree I want to, except it'll turn about another 10 degrees this way, and then it hits up against the nut. The corner of the plate does. So but I can turn it 90 degrees from one face to the other. So anyway, so that's what I built for a quick change router jig on my lathe, and it works pretty good. I only had one router on it originally for doing woodwork, and that's what I originally put it together for. But when I had this project, I thought this would work real effectively for this plastic, so that's what we did.